Clerk will call the roll.
Blaine Whitley, County Judge.
Here.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner, Precinct 1.
Well, I think that was you, but thank y'all for getting quiet when I was coming in.
Roy C. Brooks, Commissioner, Precinct 1.
She's called your name twice.
Thank you. Andy H. Wynn, Commissioner, Precinct 2.
Here.
Gary Fickus, Commissioner, Precinct 3.
Here.
J.D. Johnson, Commissioner, Precinct 4.
Here.
Constitute a quorum.
Thank you. Our invocation today will be delivered by Alderman Dave Barrett. After the invocation, please remain standing for our pledges.
Shall we pray? Almighty God, for your many blessings to us, we thank you. For the help that we know that we need, it can only come from you, we beseech you. We especially ask your blessings upon all the employees who will be recognized today, and indeed upon our entire employee family. We give this day and these proceedings to you, persuaded that your grace, mercy, and loving kindness will be with us. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you, Doug. Mr. Manius, agenda announcements.
Members of the Court, we have several announcements for the Court this morning. The first is under the public hearing section, item 8B. We're going to ask that we hold that item. We will reschedule that public hearing, but we are not going to have that on March 15th. Also, would like to remind the Court and department heads and elected officials that the Court will not be meeting next Tuesday, which is the 8th. Our next meeting of the Commissioners' Court will be March 15th. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Court members, you have before you the minutes of our regular meeting of February 22nd.
Move approval.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Today we have proclamation. Commissioner Wynn.
Thank you, Judge. Today we would like to recognize the American Red Cross for their services. The American Red Cross embodies the compassion and the generosity of the American people. It received its congressional charter in 1900. This charter, which remains in effect today, sets forth the purposes of the American Red Cross organization that include giving relief and serving as a medium of communication between members of the American Armed Forces and their families, as well as providing national and international disaster relief and mitigation. This is an organization that has made a difference in my life. When my family needed a helping hand while we were escaping and after we escaped from the brutality of the communists. With all we have seen with the destruction of Katrina and the devastation of in Haiti, I know in times of disaster, the American Red Cross has always been the first there and the last to leave. The American Red Cross is a noble charity. I ask the Court to join me today in ratifying the proclamation recognizing the legacy of the American Red Cross, which is very much also the legacy of our great nation. Judge, would you please read the proclamation into record?
You bet. Whereas the American Red Cross was designated in 1905 by the U.S. Congress as the lead voluntary agency responsible for national and international relief in time of peace, including assistance during famine, fire, flood, and other calamities. And whereas the American Red Cross is always there under the same trusted symbols, serving the community and touching more lives by providing education, life-saving information, training, and disaster relief to families, schools, and businesses. And for the past 87 years, the Chisholm Trail chapter of the Red Cross has devoted itself to that same goal. And whereas in the past year, the American Red Cross responded to more than 650 disasters in the Chisholm Trail chapter service area, from home fires to windstorms and gas explosions. And whereas today, the mission of the American Red Cross is more relevant than ever as society faces unique challenges, and through its bold new Together We Prepare initiative, the American Red Cross is leading the way in empowering individuals and families to protect themselves by training in essential skills and disaster preparedness. And whereas the Chisholm Trail joins with other chapters nationwide during March 2011 to celebrate Red Cross Month and the services these chapters provide, now therefore be it resolved that we, the Commissioners Court of Tarrant County, do hereby proclaim March 2011 as American Red Cross Month in Tarrant County. And further, we urge Tarrant County residents to become partners in disaster preparedness with the Chisholm Trail chapter, in witness whereof we've heretofore set our hands and caused the seal of Tarrant County to be affixed this first day of March 2011.
Judge, we also have Mr.
You'll move its approval?
I move for approval.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Mr. Robert Hinkle, would you please come down and address the court?
Good morning, Robert.
Good morning.
I thought he only built roads.
Well, he committed to the community also.
We build roads for cars, and we build roads for people, Commissioner. And that's exactly what the Red Cross does. Thank you very much for the proclamation. You know, I've been around the Red Cross for about 12 or 13 years as a volunteer and as a board member, and it just never ceases to amaze me how little people really know about what the Red Cross does on a daily basis. You always hear about the tsunami. You always hear about the hurricane. You always hear about the major disasters worldwide, what's going on in Haiti. But it really is, like you said, Judge, in that proclamation, it is that everyday house fire where that family gets comforted with resources and counseling after they've lost everything. It's that worker in that factory that is protected from injury because of health and safety training, or it's that mom that saved her kid's life from drowning, you know, because they found themselves in that situation. And those are services that the Red Cross brings to the table every day. But it is not, and I repeat, it is not without the resources and support of the commission like yourself, folks like yourself, and the individuals throughout Tarrant County and the 45 counties that we serve throughout North and West Texas. And we very much appreciate the support that you guys have given us this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert.
Appreciate you coming out. Now, next is our monthly employee recognition. But before we get started with that, Commissioner Fickus had one of our county employees bring him this week the annual report of the finances of Tarrant County for the year ended July 31st, 1927. And looking, he was kind enough to bring that in to me, knowing my love of numbers, and so I had an opportunity to look through that and noticed just a couple of things that I want to bring to everyone's attention. In 1927, the county spent $49.90 to repair the dipping vats. Now, that was a part of the tick eradication process that we have. We spent a total of $954 in that particular area that year, $49 or $50 for repairing the vats, $142 for kill tick, which I assume is the chemical that you run them through, and then salaries of $762.50. The other thing that I thought we would all take a lot of pride in knowing is that in the tax year of July 1927, the total value of taxable property was $810,670. The tax rate,
This could be scary.
was 90 cents per $100 value. So for all those folks who are looking for us in our tax rate is now 26.40 cents. So we've done pretty good in the last 84 years. I also noted that in looking at the balance sheet, one of the things that we did a couple of years, I guess it's probably been, is Renee down there? Can't see her.
We've got no auditors present in the room.
Oh, shucks. But they made, GASB, Governmental Accounting Standards Board, made us go back and add all these assets to our balance sheet. Well, in 1927, they were already there. So apparently sometime between 27 and when we had to put them back on in the past. But we had, the courthouse building and grounds was valued at $1 million. I think we may have talked in the last week or so, that it actually cost us $500,000 to build that, and I guess the grounds and the other stuff around it was an extra $500,000. We had at the time courthouse furniture of about $75,000. Now the other thing, commissioners, I don't know what the judge may have been paid, but it says commissioner salaries were $19,200 for all of you put together. And I may have been, my office may have been included in that too. I'm not real sure. But it was a very interesting, I'm just kind of, you can expect more of this to come. I'm just kind of getting into this, but it's pretty interesting reading here. We talk about, we have the lunacy fund. We need to keep that one above everything, I believe. Yeah, it's lunacy, and we spent a total of $5,317.59 for lunacy. And it looks like the district clerk's salary was included in that. Very interesting reading. Expect more to come on this, but again, Commissioner Fickus, thank you. And I believe it was someone in the transportation department who, from time to time goes around and looks at, garage sales and finds old books.
Kathy Robertson.
Kathy brought this into us, and very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So that's just a little tidbit. It talks about our different precincts.
The whole county, we spent $230 on toilet paper. $230 for the year.
Yeah, and we spent $35 on hogs for the county home. So hogs, that's like old Razorbacks.
I can assure you they were eating them.
They fed the people a lot of pork.
Yeah, a lot of pork. Now, moving along to our, again, one of my favorite things, and that's the recognition of our employees who have made this such a great place to live and to work over the years. Commissioner Johnson's going to have fun with this book, I can guarantee you today, as he goes forward. First, I will recognize our 5-year employees, and as I call your name, please stand and remain standing until we get to the end of, I knew we were going to get to that. We're talking about precinct budgets up here and who had the highest budget.
J.D. still had precinct 4, and precinct 3 again was the
He
lowest.
probably remembers it.
Yeah, he does. All right, wait a minute. Before we get any go, that's one. Remember, we keep everything very civil over here on this side of the Metroplex. Now, going back to our 5-year employees, I got to get control of this thing again. Now I know how play feels. As I call your name, please stand and remain standing until the end of that particular group. 5-year, Jennifer Alonso, CSCD. Don Boring, Information Technology. Mary Castro, Sheriff Booking. Nicholas Downs, Sheriff Training. Doris Hall, Sheriff Confinement. Barry Hancock, Sheriff Courts. Thank you, Barry. I was beginning to wonder. Pamela Jenkins, the Tax Office. Genevieve Long, Public Health. Fabian Lopez, Public Health. There's another one. Jessica Olson, CSCD. Sherry Peters, Sheriff Booking. Sherry. Stephanie Rhodes Reese, District Clerk. Bruce Shelby, Sheriff Courts. Bruce. Frank Smith, CSCD. Galen Spence, Sheriff Confinement. Takesha. Well, and I had it down here, and I told Natalie when she put that down there, it's going to mess me up. Takesha Stafford, Public Health. Walter Turnbow, Sheriff, South Patrol. Daniel Vasquez, Juvenile Services. Horatio White, Sheriff, South Patrol. These are our 5-year employees. Let's give them a hand. Thank you all very much. Now for our 10-year employees. Winnie Connor, Sheriff Confinement. Michael Falcone, Information Technology. Monty Favre, Information Technology. Rebecca Grassell Peterson, Public Health. Clarence Haynes, Sheriff Confinement. Celeste Hightower, Sheriff Booking. James Horton, Sheriff Confinement. Paula McNeely, Public Health. Ernest Miles, Sheriff Confinement. John Nicholson, County Clerk. Claudia Ramirez, Constable Precinct 3. Mike Simmons, Sheriff, Warrants. Melissa Taylor, Sheriff, Confinement. Thank you all very much for your continued interest. Now for our 15-year employees. Amy Candler, Domestic Relations. Deborah Charles, Tax Office. Lisa Dickinson, CSCD. Charles Gilbreth, Transportation Services. Edward Gordon, District Attorney's Office. Christine Greenlee, CSCD. Annie Hinojosa, Human Services. Jenny Hoot, CSCD. Roberta Jackson, District Clerk's Office. Mike Kellerman, CSCD. Lisa Kissel, Juvenile Services. If it sounds like it, stand up. Bernice Mack, Juvenile Services. Henry Mansky, CSCD. Jennifer Staples, CSCD. Sandra Wilburn, Juvenile Services. William Ibarra, District Clerk's Office. These are our 15-year employees. Now for our 20-plus years, we spend a little bit more time when I call and talk with each one of them. And again, it's always a very enjoyable time. And we have I think some interesting things today. First on our 20-year employees is Judge Darrell Coffey. And Judge Coffey wasn't sure he was going to be able to be here. He is actually in Austin today preparing for Tarrant County Days and speaking to the legislature. But obviously, Judge Coffey has actually been here for around 24 years. He's one of those who started, left, came back as an elected official. And so when you see Judge Coffey, congratulate him on his time with the county. Next is Aneta Gutierrez, and she was not going to be able to make it today because she had another appointment scheduled that she could not get away from, and so she's in the district clerk's office and has been there for 20 years, so be sure and as you see her over the next week, congratulate her for the 20 years that she's given. Now, we're not running real successful on our first three here. The next is Mark Mendez, whose job is in Austin every other year for the first 5 months of the year. So Mark is not going to be able to be with us today, but again, as you see him, if you see him breezing in and breezing out over the next 5 months, congratulate him or send him an email congratulating him and letting him know how much we appreciate the work he does for us here in Tarrant County. Now, this next individual is someone who has been here and has been here regularly for the last 20 years. Grace, stand up. Now, Grace filled out her own sheet. So I'm getting ready to make all the calls, and she's taking off, and I thought, okay, I'm going to have to call her at home, and then I open up their sheet, and there it is. It's all filled out. Here's, and I'm going to read to some extent what she said. When I asked her about her time, she said, I've been very fortunate to work in this office all the years. So obviously she came with Judge Vandergriff, was his first hire, and has been here ever since. Memorable moment, maybe when the people got shot again in the old courthouse, but on a broader note, she said, when I was given the Community Service Award for working with the children, and that is something I enjoy. And she volunteers regularly and has for years at our elementary school, and very much enjoys and is appreciated for that. When she filled out, see, I'm so used to it, when I asked her what, she filled it out. I think being able to help people from all walks of life, which she definitely does in that office, is one of the things she likes most. And then the coworkers and friends that she's worked with in the office throughout her 20 years with us, and then the security of again, the county job. And she said she just wanted to thank everyone for all of the courtesies and everything they show. Now, I also took the liberty, and this is one you didn't know about, of calling Victor and asking Victor. I had mentioned to Victor a couple of weeks ago that you were going to be celebrating your 20 years, and he said, oh, I want to be there. And so I had called, and he too is in Austin today at the request of a state senator testifying, so he wasn't able to make it, but he did send this little note, and I'm just going to read this. And he said it's from Victor and from the entire Vandergriff family. It is noted often that Tom Vandergriff instilled the right attitude and working environment in county government when he became county judge in 1991. His style was noted in his tenure as calm, respectful, helpful, and positive. The first person he hired when he took office was Grace, who personified the style he wanted Tarrant County to be known for. Grace has been the very essence of calm, respectful, helpful, and positive during her entire working career. The Vandergriff family was lucky to have Grace in their personal and professional lives for nearly 50 years. Tarrant County has been privileged to have Grace for 20. The entire Vandergriff family is delighted to recognize Grace on her 20th anniversary with Tarrant County. I know they... I know you mean a tremendous amount to them. I know they mean a tremendous amount to you. And we at Tarrant County really appreciate all of the hard work that you do for us and have done for these past 20 years. Thank you very, very much.
Judge, for the record, would you call Grace's last name?
Roden.
There you go.
I just went through the whole thing without...
Yeah, just Grace.
Well, she is
She
Grace.
does have a last name.
She is Grace. Next is Mary Vandegas. Is she here? Okay, I thought she was going to be able to make. She started out with the ME's office. She's now at the Sheriff's Bond Desk and has enjoyed very much her time there. So as you see Mary, please congratulate her on the 20 years that she spent with Tarrant County. I'm going to have to take that book away from Commissioner Johnson over there. He's having too much.
Very interesting.
He's having entirely too much fun. Next, our 20-year is Jason Willingham. Sheriff, of course, there's Jason. Started out in the Cold Springs area, then moved to the Correction Center and went to patrol in, I guess, February of 92, and was actually there until April of 2002. Then went into the CID and was promoted to sergeant and then back to the patrol desk. Then to training and was in training, I guess, till around 2006. And then he's moved, then he was assigned over to the Justice Center. When I asked him about the more memorable moments, it was the opportunity for training, it was the supervisors that he's worked for over the 20 years that he's been with us, and it was helping people in that family violence area. It was something that meant an awful lot to him and that he talked about quite a bit. When I asked Jason what he liked most, it was the opportunities he'd been given, the different areas that he had an opportunity to work in, especially in the patrol area, the opportunities to help in the training. He said, I've really had an opportunity to work all over the entire county, and that's been a real blessing. He said he really enjoys how progressive we are in the ways that we try to do things. When I asked him about anything else, he said, each place that I've worked has held some special memories for me and things that I've been able to look back over. He said we're really a close family, and given the large number of employees, I think sometimes people from the outside would think that's really can't be the case when you have this many employees. But time and again, I hear from folks how when they're in need or when something occurs in their life, how folks from all over the county, not just the departments, not just the area in which they work, but people from all over the county come to their aid and want to take care of them and make sure they're doing well. Jason, thank you very much for the 20 years you've given us. Next is Nancy Griggs with the Justice of the Peace Precinct 2. There's Nancy. Been here with us for 25 years. Started out in Precinct 2 working for Judge Forbes and is now the court manager and has been that since 1997 with Judge Davis. When I asked her about the memorable moment, she said it was when Judge Davis took office. The respect that she has and the job that she has for the job that Judge Davis does could be heard in everything that she said. When I asked her what she liked most, she said, I enjoy very much the security and the benefits. She said, as I've worked through the county, I've watched my kids grow up. And I've had an opportunity to go through, and she said, I've seen my daughter come to work for the county, and her daughter now works in the tax office. And so, Nancy, we want to thank you very much for the 25 years you've given us. Now, next is another Nancy, Nancy Hawkins, with County Criminal Court number 8. Now, that's Judge Coffey's court, so Nancy wasn't sure she was going to be able to make it, and she's not, so please congratulate her for the 25 years that she's given to Tarrant County, and as you see her in the next couple of weeks, or over this week and next week. Next is Julie Kelly with the tax office and has been there for 25 years. There's Julie. Started out in the Lake Worth tax office, has worked downtown and polished. She said, basically I've worked wherever they've needed me to work and felt very good about, having an opportunity to move around and to work throughout the county. She's currently working vehicle registration titles. In fact, when I called her, she was working with a customer And she said, okay, just a second, Judge, hold on just a second. And I could hear her transacting business and working with that, that customer. And again, never missing a beat, being just as friendly as she could be and working and making sure that that customer got served and got great service and left feeling good. When I asked her about the more memorable moment, she said it was when the state would make changes in the vehicle registration systems, and going from one sticker to another, or however they might be doing things. And then she said the computerization that has occurred over the 25 years that she's been here. When I asked her what she liked most, she said, I really have enjoyed the hours, but I also enjoy the opportunities that I've been given as I've worked with Tarrant County. Enjoys working with the people and interacting with the public, and I could tell that in just listening to her in her conversation with the customer she was dealing with. She said she's just been very fortunate to have great bosses the entire time she was here. And she said, I really feel like that people care about me, that everyone, again, cares about everyone that works for the county. Julie, we thank you very much for the 25 years you've given us. Next is Autry Williams, Records Management for 25 years. There's Autry. Started out in the records management and has been there the entire 25 years he's been with Tarrant County. He's currently the records clerk, and as such, he has records from all departments. When I asked him, well, give me an idea about what we're talking about, he said there's over 100,000 boxes. Over 100,000 boxes that are in our records management area. When I asked him what he liked most, he said it was meeting and greeting people that he's had an opportunity to come in contact with over the years. He said, I just love being able to interact with people. And he likes the independence of the job and the respect that his bosses and supervisors have given him. Again, treating people fairly, treating people nicely, and like you would want to be treated. He said in closing that I really enjoyed my time at Tarrant County. And Audrey, we appreciate very much the 25 years you've given us. Thank you. Next is Pat Sursley with the District Attorney's Office, 30 years. Pat, there she is. Started out as mental health assistants in the probate courts and left for about 7 months, then came back as a volunteer, I guess, actually, in the family violence area, and was a volunteer for several months, and then applied for and was hired by the DA's office. Has been there for about 23 years, and currently is one of the victim assistant coordinators. When I asked her about a more memorable moment, she said it was, again, working with people, and talking recently with someone and remembering when she said, I was just talking with someone else who had been here for a number of years, and we were recalling the fact that we had an elevator operator at one point in time. And that we used to, when we first came to work, had to know shorthand and had to be able to use a typewriter, a manual typewriter. And so, you really stop and think about it. You really did come here when you were a child. 30 years. When I asked her what she liked most, she said the people have always been very friendly. She loves working with the public. She loves her job and the people that she's had a chance to work with. She said, it really has been a privilege and an honor to work with Tarrant County and the folks in Tarrant County, and that the time has really gone by fast. And Pat, we appreciate. I almost caught you. We really appreciate the 30 years you've given us. Thank you very, very much. Next is Mike Warren, Juvenile Services, 30 years. Now, Mike started out and spent all of his time in the juvenile services area. He's currently one of our community service officers. When I asked him what he liked most, he said, it's again the stability, but it's also the flexibility. It's the ability that folks, that he's given and that we give to folks to get out there and to do the job the way they feel like they need to have it done and to help people out. And what I found, especially in this juvenile services area, these folks really do everything they can to try to turn these kids around. He said, I also like the fact that the folks in the department are willing to listen to new ideas and new ways of doing things, and not just, oh, well, this is the way we've always done it. When I asked him if there was anything else, he said, the time has gone by very quickly, and that it really is a great place to work. And Mike, we appreciate very much you giving us 30 years of your life. Now, this last person, I don't know that I've seen one. I'm trying to remember if I've talked with anybody before who has actually spent 40 years with this county.
Judge,
Sandra Williams.
I am told that she is the first person to reach 40 years of service with Texas.
Well, I didn't know about Robert. I was thinking there was two people who came to mind, Jeannie and Robert.
Yeah.
But Sandra Williams, stand up. I will tell you that the thing that struck me about immediately, right off the bat, was the energy that this lady has. And the fact that when I asked her, 40 years, that's a long time to be at something, she says, I just absolutely love what I'm doing. She started out in the detention area before the center was even opened in March 1st. She actually started on March 1st, 1971. So today is the 40th anniversary of her time with the county. She took the girls from the county jail to the center. Has been in field service for over 30 years and carries a caseload of between 20 and 35 cases at any one time. When I asked her about more memorable moments, she said the kids, especially those that are successful and will come back and let her know how well they're doing after they've had an opportunity to visit with her. When I asked her what she liked most, again, she said it was the kids that she's had a chance to work with over the years. It was her co-workers. She said, I just absolutely love what I'm doing. Again, the first thing I read, I just love what I'm doing. And she says, I plan on being here for a while longer. I said, I want you to be back here. I want to be able to read, and with the voters' hope, with their help, I want to read when she's 45. I want you to stand up at 45, and but I told her, I said, I really am reluctant to tell you this, but you probably realize that you'd be making a whole lot more money retired than what she said. And she said, I know that. But again, she ended as she began. I love, love, love what I'm doing. And Sandra, we cannot even begin to thank you for the 40 years of service that you've given us. Thank you. Commissioner Wynn said, that's almost as long as I've lived. This young thing, you can only carry this so far. I've had this for a long time, and I was not near that obnoxious about this stuff. You're going to have to be careful about this. 785 years of service we've recognized today. Again, I don't ever want you to think that we think that this is any sort of a routine. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate the service that you give to the citizens of Tarrant County, but also to the co-workers around you and the folks with whom you come in contact, because you truly do make this the great place it is to work and to live and to raise a family. We got refreshments for you back in 504C. It's not near enough to thank you, but we really, really, really appreciate you. And let's give everybody another big round. Y'all can go now. That was. 40 years is a long time.
Well, if you add mine together, this will be 55 for me. Going on 56. That's 31 and 24. First life and second life. There's got to be something. I wonder how many years he was there. He was there a long time.
Yeah, he was. I don't know. I thought, I mean, immediately when I thought,
Wonder if we'll say morning.
Like 8:15.
What kind of conference is this?
it's our ledge conference. It's where we'll go and visit folks at the Capitol and the parks, right? But it's our ledge legislative conference. We've got Joint Chiefs of Staff, Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff speaking.
I had to cancel my trip to Austin this week. Al Rager died.
Yeah, I want to close today in honor. Is that all right? Close in memory of Al today?
Yeah. He died at Francis Green. They owned, she and her husband owned a grocery store and a service station there in Saginaw. She was 98 years old.
I've got a guy that needs to get
Mike Williams, Vice President of
Okay.
Now,
We go ahead and come back to order. Commissioner Johnson just reminded me of a note that we got yesterday from Mr. Phillips that brought us information about the passing of Al Greger. Al has done a lot of work for the county over the years, and if it's all right with the court members, then we'll close today's meeting in honor or in memory of Al Greger for the work that he's done with the county. Next, you have before you the consent agenda.
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Mr. Maynes?
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the court, we have 4 additional items to bring to the court this morning. First item under the administrator's section, we're requesting that the Commissioners Court approve a letter of agreement between Tarrant County and the firm of Bickerstaff, Heath, Delgado, Acosta relating to Tarrant County's redistricting of Commissioners J.P. and Constable precincts.
Move for approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I would like to offer a friendly amendment, and that is that we approve the letter of agreement, but we also allocate some amount of money for, in addition to this, for a local consultant on redistricting issues, not to exceed $10,000.
That's not on the agenda.
It is an amendment to a motion that was made that is on the agenda. Don't all the lawyers look down? Somebody
We've got
say something.
Well, we have an amendment offered. Is there a second to the amendment?
I'd like to at least have the opportunity to discuss this, but I don't know that it needs to be an amendment, does it? At this point, we could always discuss this and have it on the agenda, go ahead and approve this, have it on the agenda to have somebody, somebody to review what this, well, that's the whole. I'd
To
like to
provide
spend a little
local
time on it.
input is
Do what now?
to provide local input.
And I guess my, what,
Especially as regards the Voting Rights Act.
Do these people not do that?
They do it globally.
Huh?
They do it globally. They're not familiar with, they are not as familiar with local demographics and local patterns as someone from this community would be.
have we in the past, did we this last time hire anyone extra, or did we consult with anyone before?
We did not hire anyone extra. However, that firm at the time included one of the foremost experts on African-American redistricting issues, who was Myra McDaniel. She has since passed away.
Well, but again, I guess the only point I'd make on that is that they still have, I think, a good feel and look at, they understand the whole Voting Rights Act, and they understand the discussion around that. Myra was not from, she was officed, I believe, in Dallas or in Austin at the time. So, Mr. Heath, if you want to discuss, or do you have folks in,
We have people in Dallas. We don't have anyone residing in Fort Worth. Ms. McDaniel did reside in Austin.
okay,
But we're happy to do whatever the court wants.
thank you. I do not hear a second to the amendment at this point in time. So we'll go forward with the original motion. Any more discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 2, we're requesting that the court approve a legislative policy statement in support of legislation giving an additional enforcement authority to counties over manufactured home rental communities. The court communication lays this out fairly clearly. Basically, we have the authority to create these ordinances or standards. However, once we create those standards and a mobile home rental community basically adopts those, if at any time that they slip and don't meet them in the future, then the county does not have any authority to enforce that ordinance again. So what we're asking for is a legislative policy statement that requires a 5-0 vote of this court that would grant counties additional authority to enforce this type of policy.
Move approval.
Second?
We have a motion and a second.
Would that mean the entire community would be manufactured homes?
I'm sorry?
Well, does that include all the housing in an addition? They're all manufactured housing?
Yes. I mean, the standard is, Commissioners, that we have a policy. In fact, we approved amendments to that last week that basically establish if one is going to have a manufactured home rental community, then they have to meet a certain standard.
The entire community is
Yes.
rental homes?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on item number 3, we're requesting that the Commissioners' Court approve amendments number 1 to the Tarrant County Public Funds Depository Contract, the depository contract for registry funds held by the county clerk, and the depository contract for registry funds held by the district clerk, J.P. Morgan Chase Bank. Just a note, there was legislation that was passed that allows us to extend our contract for 2 years. That's what this amendment does. We have discussed this issue with Ms. Tidwell, the county auditor, Ms. Price, the tax assessor, Ms. Garcia, the county clerk, and Mr. Wilder, the district clerk, and they all concur in this recommendation.
Move approval.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Members of the court, on that item, I just want to recognize both Mr. Smith, Danny Smith, and Mike Wilson, who are in the audience today from J.P. Morgan Chase.
Welcome, gentlemen. Y'all can haul it now. Thank you.
Members of the court, if we could go to item number 4, we're requesting that the court approve exceptions to the county travel policy as it relates to J.P. Precinct 4. Just a note on this particular one, this is an in-region travel. That travel has already occurred. It occurred the second week of February, but the trip was to Rockwall, Texas, and had that come to the court prior to it being considered, or prior to the training or the travel actually occurring, staff would have recommended approval. So we are recommending approval of this exception at this time.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Ms. Tidwell.
We have 2 items for the court to consider this morning. The first is to receive and file the quarterly investment report for the period ended December 31st. And I would point out it's addressed in the cover letter, but on the very last page it shows a loss for the investment income for the year. That is a book-only loss. We're required by the Governmental Accounting Standards Board to recognize a gain or loss based on the market value of securities as of the end of the year. Last year we had a small gain. The actual income that we've earned is a little over $421,000. This loss would only become a realized loss if we were to sell the securities. It's not our intention to sell the securities. We intend to hold them. We have sufficient cash flow to hold the securities to maturity or until they're called at par. and so that loss should never be realized. But we do have to record it in the financial statements to meet the accounting pronouncements. Today, the pools are paying about 16 basis points. These securities are paying 85. So long-term interest rates ratcheted up a little bit after we bought the securities, which is why their market value is below. But they're still far in excess of what we would typically receive from shorter-term investments, again, such as the pool or other short-term.
What kind of securities are these? Are they Ginnie Mae's?
They're Fannie and Freddie,
Fannie
aren't they?
and Freddie.
They're Fannie and Freddie. So, but just.
Move to receive and file.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the quarterly investment report ended December 31st, 2010, and the December 2010 financial statements. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Ms. Glenn.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We have 4 items for the court this morning. The first item, we're asking the court to receive and file the personnel agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to receive and file the personnel agenda. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our second item, we're asking the court to approve an out-of-class pay extension for purchasing. As outlined in your communique, the purchasing agent is requesting an extension about a class pay. The fiscal impact to the general fund will be approximately $1,060, and if approved, this extension will end the end of April.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Our third item, we're asking the court to approve a waiver of terminal benefits for the district clerk's office. As outlined in your court communique, the district clerk has lost a court support leader who retired at the end of February with 400 vacation hours. The district clerk is requesting a waiver of 384 of those hours. The impact of the general fund is approximately $10,309, excluding fringe benefits.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Everybody's a little slow this morning. Is it likely that we're going to be moving someone up and then that somewhere down the line here we're going to end up having a vacancy that will recover some of this $10,000?
That's possible. With this particular position, the department, the district clerk already has a list. I believe they'll be making a selection very soon if they have not already. I think that's a possibility, and of course, depending upon who they select for this position, there could potentially be some salary cost savings, and so the impact could actually be less than $10,000. We won't know until a selection is made, but that's certainly a possibility.
And, is there any other discussion? Motion passes unanimously. And I don't want to point toward this thing or any one in particular, but as I think we begin to really look at our budgets and we go forward and we talk about kind of where we are and what we're trying to do, I may begin looking much more critical at granting any extension or waiver of terminal benefits, regardless of how critical the position may be, just from a standpoint of, we've got a number of folks who have a lot of hours, and I understand that these are critical positions, but at the same time, we may have to kind of look at that. I think, depending on what we're trying to do with our next year's budget.
And let's see, we have one additional item. We're asking the court to approve a departmental reorganization for the district clerk's office. I think your court communique does a fairly good job of explaining what is being requested. The district clerk is simply requesting a realignment of some of the reporting units in the district clerk's office. These changes that are requested will not result in any pay or changes in pay grades. which of course means no fiscal impact. Again, the district clerk is simply requesting these changes to improve departmental operations and efficiencies, and he's requesting the change be effective, I believe it's March 5th.
I move for approval.
I'll second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Are there any job eliminations involved here?
No.
There is an incumbent.
There are no job eliminations, no, sir.
Any other discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Mr. Beecham.
Your Honor, other members of the court, we have one item for your consideration this morning. Under the County Purchasing Act, Section 262.024A2 of Vernon's Texas Codes, exemptions to the competitive bid requirements are allowed for certain types of purchases when approved by Commissioners Court. This morning, we're requesting approval of a certain exemption from these requirements for the purchase of drug reagents, controls, and proficiency testing materials for use in our Public Health Department laboratory. We're doing this to simply ensure that the validity of our biological threat testing is valid.
Move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Please vote. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brooks, you have an interlocal agreement on the agenda.
Move approval of item 8I, 1A and B.
Second.
We have a motion to approve item 9I, 1A, and B. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Any appointments today? You have before you the claims, including the addendum.
Move approval of the claims, including the addendum.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the claims, including the addendum. Please vote. Motion passes unanimously. Briefing items, Mr. Manius.
Thank you, Your Honor. We have several items we want to bring to the court this morning. The first one is an update on our electronic case filing system, criminal court case management system. Mr. Smith is here to address the court at this time.
Good morning, members of the court. How are you today?
Good morning.
Good morning, Steve.
I'm here this morning to address some of the concerns that were raised by the auditor on 10/31 last year. I also want to take a moment to provide an update on the roadmap that we put in place for integrated justice, since we have new members of the court. And it's been roughly 11 years since we started this process, so it's a good time to revisit that. We also want to detail improvements since the auditor's report that we've placed in effect in order to improve our management, our cost control, and our development processes. Since we are dealing with intellectual property here, it's not always easy to account for. And at the end, of course, we want to take questions, and my staff and I are available at any time to answer any follow-up. The IT observations that we want to cover today were listed about management oversight, segregation of duties was not adequate. The county's total investment related to ECFS project could not be determined. A scope of work that was not always clearly defined. An IT staff that didn't comply with county policies. We're not going to be covering that since we've already disciplined the employees that were involved. And observation 5 was that the county policy should be clarified, and of course IT is always going to follow county policy. We'll follow whatever has been updated or put in place. We want to take a moment to cover what's happened over the last 11 years so it sets the framework what I'm talking about. Originally, for 25 years, you've had a mainframe environment here that has provided service, has had all the purchasing controls, has had all of the auditing controls. All the staff have provided service in 25 years for almost 1,100 programs and 70 million records that run in that mainframe system. We're only going to speak about just a small part of that today because that's all we've been working on for the past few years, and that has to do roughly with law enforcement, jail, the district attorney, courts, and CSCD. When we had that mainframe, it was very easy to use. We used a waterfall technology, which, as you're familiar, took roughly 2 years before we developed software. It was not very customer-friendly. IT was not intended to be during the mainframe years. We wrote code, we documented, it was engineering. It was not a customer-centric environment at all. We did not have any project management oversight through an office, and all the costs were pretty much internal with the employees that we had on staff. Of course, there's always a catalyst for change, and in technology, even though that lasted 25 years, change has become very rapid. There was a strategic plan that was done in the year 2000. As a part of that, the county decided to discontinue mainframe development to make a change. They wanted to hire a CIO to provide that strategic direction, manage that change, provide some intellectual property management. An important part of that, too, is to put a steering committee in place. And that steering committee is intended to give a voice to all the different departments and all the different constituents that we serve and our customers so that we are able to communicate constantly and effectively what we are doing. And, of course, at the time, it was decided to implement SAP as an ERP system. The financial part of the mainframe was old and was in great need of being replaced. So I call that our pain point solution. At that time, we started moving forward from a mainframe into a new environment. So we had to start identifying systems that needed to be fixed, that needed to be repaired. At the same time, we had to start shifting from our employee base from mainframe programming and retraining them. We also had to develop new methodologies. We had to find a way not to develop on a mainframe, but keep it running while we were developing new and unique systems for the county. If you notice up here, ECFS is part of that pain point. ECFS is a system that we started years ago and is implemented and working at the county now. It's provided service. We've processed a number of cases. The district attorney has been greatly supportive of it. As a matter of fact, we've had 3 iterations of it. It is a victim of its own success at times. We've also done the district clerk subscriber access system. It was in need of upgrading at the same time.
You might in the future put a little parentheses underneath there so folks, when they see those, I know when you say ECFS, you're talking about electronic case filing systems, and you just mentioned the district clerk subscriber
Access system.
access, so I'm assuming that's DCSA?
That's correct.
For those of us,
I know there's a lot of technology jargon in here. We wanted to try to condense it as much as possible in a short time frame. But we do have a lot of documentation that goes along with this presentation.
Steve, why don't you go ahead and tell them what IDLE is and also what CCCJIP is?
The IDLE process for indigent defense online, which was a part of a Senate bill that needed to be put in place. We didn't have an opportunity to set the time frames on it. It was a mandate that needed to be done. Our jail management system is still running on the mainframe, but we have an OSSI replacement that's a part of the sheriff's package from their CAD RMS system, which we're still looking at doing. And the jury systems, of course, we wanted to put online and make available to the public and also improve our throughput because it was very efficient and effective for the county. At the same time, besides retraining employees and changing our methodology, we also had to start buying new types of equipment when we had to have staff trained on that equipment. We also have a new methodology involved here, which was called a RUP. RUP was intended to cut back from a 2-year process to a more timely one in delivering product to customers so we could get feedback and keep them engaged.
Mr. Smith, can you explain to the court members the difference between RUP and waterfall?
Yes, the waterfall method was in place for 20 years, which was intended as an engineering tool. All the documentation was done up front. Use cases were decided. The people using the system were asked what they wanted, what they needed. It was documented completely and then documented as it was developed. And then usually within a year to 18 months was the time frame that system was delivered. The problem with the waterfall method was, of course, what you asked for a year from the time that you got it was not always what you needed at that time, so something had to change. The RUP methodology was intended to speed that process up, but yet not replace it completely. Instead of a year, it was intended to take 6 months. Also get some quick turnaround and still provide adequate management of the documents that were involved. And as we move through this, you'll see that we're going to a newer methodology as well, which I'll make sure I explain when we get there. During that time, the governance, we wanted to change the model for IT to a customer service model. We wanted to start providing direct management to our customers. We put a steering committee in place that was intended to get their input. IT's here to do the job that's needed for the county. Our purpose is to provide the tools for people to do their jobs. When I came aboard in 2004, I created a project management office. That project management office is intended to manage intellectual property. It's not physical property that you can put your hands on. It's intellectual property that has to be managed and measured, and when you're spending money for it, shows some benefit too. And we'll address a little more of that as the presentation goes along. Catalyst for an Era 3, of course, is now we're moving closer to the technology that you know today that we've been presenting to court about service-oriented architecture. We're trying to use a messaging system to replace our mainframe. We're virtualizing our servers so that we're compounding the cost. We're becoming more educated and understanding the technology of today. We're getting our employees changed from a mainframe mentality to a more of a modern technology. We've also discovered with diminishing budgets and money that we still have the same need. We can't turn around and stop and go back. We have to get off the mainframe. But the only way that we can do it now is to find other agencies, and counties alike. We all do the same thing. We're collaborating together to try to share our funds, which creates more problems from a management of intellectual property as well, but it's going to be a necessity as we move forward. And of course, the word that's coming now is cloud computing. For me, that kind of means a regionalization. There's going to be many counties doing the same things together and sharing the cost instead of trying to do it separately. It's more cost-effective that way. It gives us better communication, but it does pose challenges. It's different than the way that we do things today. As you see up here now, it looks a little bit clearer than just little bubbles floating around. We have SAP installed, which is a complete enterprise system for finance and HR and general ledger. At the same time, we installed a bus. This is an effective tool for us to message between modules so that we're able now to manage our cost and our collaboration by doing module development and adding a module to the system as we have time to do. Now, this does pose another problem. The problem is we still have that mainframe running in the background. It has 70 million records on it that we need. So we have to create an interface to the bus for each of these modules as we add it to the system. The idea is slowly over time the mainframe disappears, and we are able to upgrade and change these modules without affecting the process of doing so. When we put this in place, you'll notice now that we've changed our methodology. Our methodology is called Agile. Well, the purpose of Agile is develop quick, show it to customers, improve, and move on. We try to do it in a 2 to 4 week sprint. 2 to 4 weeks, we develop code, we show it to our customers, we get them to sign off on it, and we go on and we develop more. The code is not complete yet. It is not ready for implementation, but it does keep our customers engaged and it keeps them working with us, and in the end we end up with a good product. We keep people at the table through our planning committees to discuss what modules are going to be next, and it allows us to collaborate with other counties and agencies on a module-by-module basis where it is appropriate, where they might be willing to fund as well and be willing to sit down and help. So it gives us a very good environment to work in. The Agile process is a business-related process. I was told when I adopted it that I'd be one of the first government agencies to try to use Agile, and that we would have to develop a way to fit it in as we went along. But that's what we do. we're not afraid to take an opportunity to use new technology to move this forward. And as we do so, we've learned, as we always do, that there are improvements we could make. We do this all the time. I mean, all day long, every day, we find new ways to improve what we're doing. And this is one of them. The Agile method requires us to account for our intellectual property a little differently, and that's part of the changes that we're making in our organization. The catalyst for this era, of course, is the auditor's report. We are audited frequently, almost yearly. As a matter of fact, we are audited yearly, sometimes more, and the idea of that's to help us improve. Also to make sure that all those records that we're handling that are finance and criminal justice and juvenile and health records are being done so appropriately and within the right controls. And sometimes those controls change and they require us to change as well. So we're used to change. We need to revise our approval process for project deliverables, business requirements, contracts, renewals. This is something that typically an IT department has on its last end of things to do, but we need to move it up. We need to make sure that those processes are in place very solidly and very correctly, since we're trying to do a 2-week turnaround on code development, and it be our intellectual property, and account for it appropriately to commissioners, the auditor, and to our constituents. So what we need to do now is, besides taking periodic reviews with our code and our customers on 2-week, we have to find a periodic time to do this with both our partners in purchasing and our audit department to make sure that we're doing the right things, that we're accounting for the code that we're writing, that the intellectual property has a value that can be attributed to it, and that the money is spent and done wisely. This is part of an improvement process that we are fully in support of. Of course, we want this accountability to be very transparent, and one of my slides in a few minutes will address that as well. So we're going to call this the continuous improvement. This is going to go on until the next catalyst. I fully expect from an IT standpoint that catalysts are going to drive me every few years or so. Something's going to make me change. Either it's going to be budgets, technology, staffing, or the needs of my customers. So we have to adapt, and we have to do so quickly, learn quick, and move forward. So we're going to try to adapt our Agile process to fit within what I call physical property accounting, so that we can put some wrapper around it to identify the work that we're doing every 2 weeks. Now I'm going to have to work with a number of other agencies. The CUC at this point is also using Agile, and they are developing their process. We all together have to learn new ways to handle this. We want to refocus our governance process. We want to make sure our IT steering committee is strong and meets regularly. And from that we have communication back to the court constantly and to our customers. We want to use our executive planning committee with our justice group to drive what modules are working, how we collaborate with other counties, and to get them involved in doing so. And of course, for us, we have to do better cost accounting, and we want to collaborate with the auditors. We're looking forward to implementing some of their recommendations. And at the same time, we're going to push the multi-county collaboration even further. We're going to keep pushing it. We're going to take the code that we're developing now and hopefully create a community, a cloud, a region for this, and we're going to be breaking new ground to see how we can save money and do it better together. So let's cover some of these improvements that we've done since the auditor's report. First of all, I know that you want me to account for the cost for the Triple CMS, the project that we're working on. I know you want to see some changes in management oversight and governance. You want that communicated back from the report. I know the auditor does. And you want to know that we're going to adapt our process with the auditor's collaboration, purchasing, and all of our partners and customers to be more transparent and more accountable. Now, this is the most important slide, I think, that I have here, because I've had it in place since 2004, and I'm going to keep pushing it, and I think this is an excellent opportunity to do so. We have a project management office, and we have a portal online. That portal covers every aspect of every project that we do. Everything from the inception, a charter that's signed off by our customer, to a business analysis that's done on whether or not that it's really needed for the county, even to some type of return on investment, which is a little hard to measure since we don't measure it in money savings. Sometimes we measure it in time savings. And we present that to the steering committee on a budget and a yearly basis to add new projects, to decide what the county wants to do to spend time. But the important thing here is this project management office portal has been available and is available to everyone that needs it. It accounts for all of our projects on a weekly basis. It'll tell you what our status are, who's signed off on what projects are scheduled for implementation, even down to testing if you want to know what that is. What we do need to add to this that we haven't had is the financial part where we account for each week that we're spending money. We did not do that before because it was a part of our budget, and we took it out of our budgeting system and paid for it as it had been approved by Commissioners Court for us to spend. Now we need to account for how we're spending it. We're going to do that as well. But I still want to make sure that that point is made, that that portal is available and is good for information on a weekly basis. And also, this project in particular, the criminal court case management system, has been tracked, has been signed off, and is documented in that system. And we looked at it yesterday. It has that documentation in it. We want to add some of the cost functions that we discussed as improvements. You know, I'd like to be able to show you a second. Triple CMS as a, oh yeah, let's see if it works now. There we go. I'd like to be able to show it to you as a physical property. I'd like to be able to walk you across the street and say, there's the money that you're paying for a system that we're building that's going to process people through our criminal case systems, but I can't. It's actually an intellectual property, and there are screens involved, and there's a lot of code and processing, but we have shown this. We've shown this a number of times to people. We've demonstrated to other counties who are interested in participating with us in future development. And as we do, we keep building this property just like we do a building until it has great value, until we can move into it, and until it's habitable for everybody to utilize. And in our case, though, buildings don't usually last 25 or 30 years. Usually by the time we finish building this, we're already remodeling the first, second, and third floors, which is the speed and the time that we have to be flexible in doing so. We have many screens. We have many parts of our system that are available for demonstration. It is a working system. Now let's cover some of the costs that we put in place over the years with Triple CMS. And what I want you to know here when you see this is that we have this code. It's available. It has been vetted since the auditor's report. We decided to take it out and vet it, see what the value of it was. We took it to TechShare, and they said, you got a good product here. As a matter of fact, are you interested in sharing it with other counties? And I think we are. At some point, I hope to come back to Commissioner's Court through the County Administrator's Office and present that process. Tomorrow in Dallas, I'll spend the whole day talking with them and matching what their fit gaps are to see if our code can meet their needs. Now, I do want you to notice that we have code here that is ready to be used. Why is it not in place yet? I'm very risk adverse about this. If I mess up a court system, I will be here again explaining why, and I do not want to do that. We want to make sure that we have our interfaces to our mainframe in place. We want to make sure that it's tested adequately. We want to make sure the district attorney signs off on it. We want to pilot it in different courts at times. We have the plea agreement now in pilot with 2 attorneys now being tested. And as we move forward, we will put this in place.
When you say 2 attorneys, you mean 2 of our district attorneys?
That's correct. They are sending plea offers to bar members and getting responses back electronically.
That's in 2 district courts.
On these costs, are these costs to the consultants, outside people that come in, and I know you have a number of them. Is that what this cost represents, or is this the cost of your employees' salaries, benefits, Is that included, or is that not included?
No, sir, this does not include our employees. Our employees at the time are being trained in this technology. They're still supporting our mainframe environment. We have not transitioned completely. Our staff are charged by the county to keep everything running every day. That's really what IT is here to do. But at the same time, the charge in the year 2000 was get off the mainframe, move to something else. These charges here are to contractors that we have used to develop intellectual property for us. Our staff are sitting by them, learning every day. Our staff are sitting with them and also giving them input. And these contractors have worked with us for years, so we have developed an amazing amount of knowledge in this process as well.
Steve, you might also point out on that slide, when you look at the left-hand column, these are all modules or different elements that we have developed or in the process of testing, actually in production in some uses. And so these are the activities. They're separate, yet they're connected in certain ways as it relates to the criminal court case management system.
So all of these are individual projects or products of the money that was spent in that particular area, and although it was classified as electronic case.
That's correct.
It's really all of these different projects.
You're exactly right, Your Honor.
I would recommend that you also add another column with the dates when each module was started and when it was implemented or tested. That will give us a better visibility into the time frame.
And we'll post that on the portal as soon as we leave this briefing today.
Thank you.
One of the other changes that was needed and recommended by the auditor's office was not to have single points of control in our organization, not relying on one person to make a decision from the time a project is in its inception until it's delivered. So we went out and we found a very, very useful and very best practice process for management oversight. It's called a RACI matrix, so that we have a number of different people associated at any time with the decision-making process on this and signing off on it and available in the portal. And we put this in place since the auditor's report. We want to adapt our cost accounting with the auditor's assistant. We do appreciate their accounting background. We have an SAP system that offers an internal order tracking process. We think it would be a benefit. It has been discussed preliminarily with the auditor's office. We want to continue working towards that goal. We want to tie in our SAP system so that it becomes transparent. And of course, we are going to work diligently to adapt Agile to Tarrant County's requirements instead of trying to use it the other way. I think it's our responsibility to do so, and it solves other counties' problems when they decide to adapt this method too. If we collaborate with them, they're going to want to implement and install as fast as we do. They're going to have to be able to use this. And we've been implementing this since the first of the year. So our organization is now starting and using this process. So in conclusion, there are things I want to say. I think that, there's an opportunity for IT to stand here and tell you is that, we take risk. We are recognized in the state as one of the best IT organizations. And, when you're in the front of the trail going where nobody else has, you're going to find out what's there first. And we're not afraid of that. We expect to continue to do that. We want to do it in a controlled and manageable way. And in return, you know that we have gotten a number of rewards and awards and recognition for our work. And that's at the benefit of the Commissioner's Court here because they believe in us. They believe what we're doing is good, right, and will save money and bring people together collaboratively. And we appreciate that. We are recognized at Tarrant County as a leader in integrated justice. People call us from all over and ask us, how are you doing it? How are you getting people to work together? How are you getting the process to work? And it's a discovery. This is a new way of doing business in the future. And I think with the way the budgets are and money is going to be, we're going to have to get really good at it. Really? Really good. Tarrant County is recognized for that collaboration with the Council of Urban Counties. And we want to continue expanding it. We want to, find opportunities with other organizations in other counties, and we want to find a way that it can also return some of that investment that the county has put into our software in checks back to us for us taking the risk and developing it. And the standard that we have set with the triple CMS has not been an easy one. It's taken us a number of years to develop that with our district attorney's office, but it is considered the gold standard now. We have other district attorney's office that want the system. They want to implement too. They want to find ways to share the cost with us, and they want to be able to get the advantages. And our goal from an IT standpoint is to find ways where we can share information and experience. So at this point, I have presented to you. I am available for questions.
Question. Can you go back to the slide with the dollar amounts on again? Well, I'm trying to, I guess, get a grasp of how. Okay. A couple questions. Each one of these is a separate contractor? Is that correct?
No, sir. This is under our approved budget and contract we have with Expedient.
With who?
Expedient.
Okay. So,
Not all of these are
Expedia,
No.
is that what it's called?
Not all of them. You're correct, sir. I'm sorry.
That's a company, correct? That
Yes.
oversees this? Or do they are they hiring people, contractors, to do all these different functions?
They have the experience and the skill levels that we've contracted them to provide to the county.
So they're kind of your quarterback?
Yes, sir.
Is that the problem? I mean, would that be?
They're here to teach us, to help us learn and implement new technology and help us develop
Okay,
code.
so they are kind of overseeing all this, and then they're going out.
Sure.
They don't keep all these people on staff. These are contractors that work.
They have staff members, and they augment them. They pay them as we are able to
Right.
continue paying. Yes,
Okay,
sir.
but I mean, they go out and they find people who are trained specialists in, for let's say, your administration area here where you spend $180,000. They've gone out and found 1, 2, 3 people that can function and put that program and implement that through them.
They have a core staff on hand as well that they've hired, and those staff have worked with us on all of the modules that they've been involved in.
Okay. So you got this group of people funneled down to Expedia. Who in your department has the oversight of Expedia right now?
I do. I have a director of strategic planning and a senior project manager and 3 project managers overseeing that.
And they all report to each other and then report to you?
They report in a chain to me, yes, sir, in my organization.
Okay.
Commissioner, we might just, so that there's not a misunderstanding, when we have a particular project, what happens is that there is an end user, either the district attorney's office, the criminal courts, or whatever. And we have our project managers on staff work with them to determine what type of software that they need and what they want this software to do. Then we engage companies like Expedient to actually work with the end user, IT staff, and then that company to actually write that code.
So the Expedia folks may not be familiar with criminal justice, but what you do is they're familiar with how to write something. They talk with the folks from the district attorney's office and our project manager, and then from that, they go about writing a program that will do what ultimately the district attorney's office wants done.
But what we found, Your Honor, is that an Expedient doesn't have all these contracts. We have other contractors that are part of this $4 million. Normally, those contractors have some form of criminal justice experience, either in a particular programmer or a business specialist that they bring to the table also. So it's not, I just want to make sure that everyone realizes that we simply don't give some money to a company and then they go out and hire, they subcontract with other people. people like Expedient or Sierra, those companies that we've used in the past, they have a fairly extensive staff that understand this type of work and write code for us.
Do you recall 2 months ago, maybe, you and I met with one of IT's managers, possibly, up in your conference room one day?
Yes.
We went through the matrix of how all these contractors that are approved through the state, and they're hired to do a specific job for a specific amount of money. I'm assuming that about a month ago, we extended a contract up here, $50,000, $60,000 for a part-time.
We did. That person was here to help write code for us.
Right, and that was a contractor.
That was
Like
an
a
extension.
full-time employee of the county.
Right.
That is correct.
Okay, and I think that's what, when we had that meeting, that was very well explained, I think, how that funneled down
Right.
through Expedia or somebody else. It could have been,
Or directly to the county. We contract directly with a contractor to do that type of work.
I just want to get a feel from how it flows.
And I guess one of the things I want to check, within each one of these, as we contract with Expedia and as those contractors write programs for us, we own the program, we own all proprietary, and they can't go out and write that same program for some other county. They can't do that, and all of that belongs to us, is that correct?
That is correct. And the intellectual property in this case belongs to Tarrant County. And I want to add, those contractors are not here just to write code. Our employees sit right next to them, arm in arm, because eventually those people leave. We have to pick up ownership, management of it, and installation and day-to-day support of it.
But I guess the question I want to be sure that we're all clear on is, since we contract with someone and they're sitting down and they're having the conversations with our people in IT and with our people in whatever office it may be.
Yes.
And they convey to them the program that needs to be written, and then someone out there writes it. That same person that now has that in their mind. We own the program, but in their mind, they know, and they could go back out, and I'm assuming write it again. But we have some sort of a contract either with the individual or with the contractor, i.e. Expedia is one example, that prevents that from happening or prevents them from being able to give anything they've done while under our contract to anyone else.
We work closely with the district attorney's office with that goal in mind.
Let me ask one other quick question.
Yes, sir.
We have 11 items here that are, I guess, together, they comprise our CCCMS development project. Would that be
That's
a
correct,
correct
sir.
statement? And according to this, we've got, some of them are ready for user testing. Some of them, I think, has been accepted, has been completed. Are any of these 11 items in production working today?
Yes, sir. Our plea agreements are in pilot now in 2 courts.
Okay.
One of the reasons we're taking very careful when we put this in place. We want to make sure, because we have to change the way the courts work, change the way the district attorney works.
Do you have a timeline for when the other 10 will be put into service?
Of course, I'd like to tell you as soon as possible, but that doesn't give a correct answer. We had testing is if it tests perfectly, then we will put in as soon as possible. I can't tell you an exact date because they tie together. We have to write code for interfaces to the mainframe once it's accepted. Mm-hmm. Then we have to get sign-offs, and then we have to schedule court personnel to change and accept when. Some of it has to do with our customer, when it does not impact their business as much. Of course, in the courtroom, it impacts their business every day. So,
What about an estimate?
Yeah,
an estimate, we expect to have these all done by the end of the year, the end of the fiscal year. That's our goal.
This year?
Yes, sir.
okay.
Are there any more modules?
There are always more modules. And
What's
that's
the process of determining that new module, the 12th and the 13th and the 14th?
As we develop the recommendations from our customers for new modules, we go through a process of documenting it and doing a charter, and hopefully bringing it to our Justice Planning Group, which is a subcommittee of the steering group, and then have it presented for budgeting through the steering committee and back to court. And we want to have the oversight of and governance of our group to be able to do so.
So how do you determine, I mean, do we, or you just said, you know, when that next module comes up, how is it brought to the IT steering committee first? And they approve that, and then it's ultimately approved in our budget as we go forward on an annual basis?
That's the goal. We have not had new ones brought to us yet. We're expecting that in this month as a part of this budget process.
So everything that we've done, everything that we see here, we've approved as a budgetary item in the past?
Yes, sir. It's approved in our budget last year. This is the work that we have been working on, and many years before. This is not just 1 year's work.
Okay.
And when we decided to, let's say we decided to implement a new module, okay? Are we going back to purchasing and bid that, or is that considered a professional service, and we can go back and select the existing contractors who already have the experience?
In this situation, we want to work very closely with purchasing to make sure we're using correct purchasing guidelines, and we will bid, if necessary, use contractors that we already have accepted under our purchasing agreements, or use state contractors that are acceptable to purchasing in this court.
But there are a whole bunch of other steps that we go through before we ever get to who's going to write the code and
Many.
what contractors we're going to use.
Many.
That's the whole project management office procedure to receive the request from the customer, which is one of our county departments, to flesh it out, make a business case, determine the cost, determine the return on investment, determine how it fits in with the county's strategic objectives, determine its cost effectiveness, determine whether or not it's doable, prioritize it, and then go present it to the court and whoever else.
That's absolutely correct.
Approval.
And all of that we post step by step in the portal as we go through a project. We have projects in our portal that have never been funded. They're not budgeted, but we've done the work on them to keep the information.
You talk about the cost of developing this new software. You talk about the cost of implementing it. Can you touch a little bit on the cost of sustaining it, maintaining it? I'm sure you use some sort of a coding language, CC+, something like that. Do we have internal expertise that can write updates and so forth, or do we have to continually retain outside services for this?
Now, during this process, once we have accepted and we are now running that software to do our daily business, as a part of that whole process through the project phase is to have those contractors train our people so that we can maintain our own environment. Now, that's about 98%. There are specialties at times that we were not going to come back to commissioners and ask for a full-time employee. We only need them occasionally for certain types of jobs, so we make that call judiciously when we do. The goal is to get all of our mainframe employees converted to the newer technology, to make that investment in their education, to move them forward so they can support us. The great thing about this project is different from Tyler or SAP. There is no software company. We are the software company. We own the intellectual property. We don't have to pay a license in the future. They don't dictate to us when it's out of date. We update it when we see the need to, and we can also work with other counties to get some return on that investment, whereas a software company won't allow us to do that.
Gary? I think what you're doing makes a lot of sense. I'm just concerned about the cost. If these numbers here, do they represent the cost that has been spent to date, or does this include through the end of this fiscal year, because that money's been budgeted, obviously? Do these numbers does the $4 million include? In other words, are you going to come back in 2 months and that number is now $4,500,000?
The money that we had budgeted that was approved by Commissioners Court, we have scheduled to spend according to the modules that have been approved.
Is the $402 million number at the bottom here?
$4 million.
$4 million.
$4 million and 2,000, I'm sorry. We'll just round it off to $4 million. Is the $4 million, is that number going to increase by the end? Well, is it going to increase? You said all this will be done and operational by the end of the year.
That's only part of our entire integrated justice system. There's still more parts to it.
So this is year-to-date expenditures?
Year-to-date
not-
expenditures, yes, sir.
Year-to-date.
We still have some money in our budget left for the rest of the fiscal year. We are meeting with Dallas County tomorrow to see how we might be able to actually save some of that money as we move forward.
Do we have an idea, at the end of the day, what this is going to cost?
We have a budget. What is
We have
our
a
budget for these
Yeah.
items?
$2.6 million this year.
How much?
2.6. So how much of this,
Doesn't,
by the time it's all over with, what's that 4 million going to come up to if we spend our budget? I think is the question.
4.8, I think we have about 800,000.
So there's about 800,000 left. If we had a 2.6, that means we've spent about 1.8 of this year's budget.
but he said that's not the whole deal, though. This isn't the whole pie. This is just part of the pie, correct?
We're replacing 1,100 programs on our mainframe.
Okay.
That's the goal that was given to me and when I came aboard in 2004.
This is all we have approved thus far.
That's all
in
you've
the budget.
approved, yes, sir.
If we decide at the end of the year, going into next year, not to approve something, what we have approved from a budget standpoint is, I think I hear what I heard you say just a few minutes ago, was on these projects, we have approved a budget of $4.8 million. We have about 800,000 left on these particular projects
That we have not allocated yet.
that we've not spent or allocated thus far.
Not allocated.
Now,
You mentioned
not
about
allocated.
1,100 different programs.
Yes, sir.
Does that all have to do with criminal court case management?
About 900 of them do. At the county, the majority of the things we do are financial and court-based. And when I say criminal, let me clarify that. We'll call it the justice system.
Okay.
For everything from JP to civil to district clerk to criminal courts to grand jury to it's law enforcement, sheriff, jail.
And again, our goal
what we do.
under our Tech Share program with the Conference of Urban Counties would be to take this 4.8 on these particular programs and to work cooperatively with other counties in doing, let's just take these. If this had been a Tech Share program and if 4.8 million was the total amount that we had expended on this, then, and we had 4 other counties, or let's just say it was just us and Dallas had joined together on that particular deal, then of that 4.8, depending upon how we allocated the cost, whether it be on population, whether it be on the number of cases that are filed, whatever it might be, then we would allocate that $4.8 million cost among the 2 counties. Just as within our juvenile case management system, we're talking about 3 counties initially, Bexar, Dallas, and Tarrant. The state has now joined in with us on that, and so, but not only the initial creation costs will be allocated among those joining counties, but also the continuing updating and improving of the program would also be allocated. So while the 4.8 represents what we will have spent possibly through the end of the year on these particular programs, as Steve indicated earlier, we may very well receive money back from some of the other counties who decide to participate in this program with us.
The CUC and their studies have said that the work that we have done is worth more, would cost us more from a software company. Approximately $2 million we've saved so far because it belongs to us. Now, we're not done yet, so I don't want to say that's an absolute figure, but we are providing our own solutions here and being able, this is our collateral going into a collaboration. We have intellectual property with collateral.
The one other thing that I guess, and I don't know how we would quantify this, but we are, just as when we went into SAP, we paid so much for the program, but the big cost was all of our folks who worked on it for, a couple of years trying to get it implemented and moving it into place. We do have folks who are committed to this inside of our personnel, and it would be, I think, to our benefit, especially if we decide as we go forward to partner with someone else, that we be able to be reimbursed to some extent for the time commitment of our personnel who are directly being allocated and maybe even indirectly to some extent. in that process.
It is my hope to come back to this court with such proposals in the near future.
A moment ago, you mentioned that everyone who have access and can have access to PMO, the portal.
Yes, sir?
Can you clarify the term everyone?
If you're an employee within Tarrant County's you sign in, you have a login, you can have access. You need to call 3507, and we will give access to anybody who needs it. It's transparent. It's nothing in there that's can't be seen by anybody. But it is only available within Tarrant County, correct?
Thank you.
Although I would assume that that is public information, and
Sure
if
it is.
anybody
Absolutely.
requested it, they could also have access to that.
If necessary, we follow
We
our
may
budgets.
ultimately make it available online from that perspective.
The
And
reason that we don't have it to the general public is it's simply an internal working document.
it's
It
also,
changes constantly.
it also represents our intellectual property, so I want to be very careful who I give access to. I'd hate to find out that somebody in China has written all this software and is selling it now.
You got to pick
That's
up
my
the Chinese.
concern.
Someone in Libya.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, and I'm available at any time, Commissioners. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Members of the court, we have two additional items, and I'll go over them very quickly. The first one is the legislative issues. Mr. Mendez has given you a memorandum, his weekly memorandum as relates to activities of the legislature. They're in your packet. If there's any questions I might answer, I'll be more than happy to try. If not, I'd like to move on to item number C. This is the inmate telephone system. Currently, we have a contract with Securus Technologies for our telephone system for inmates. We are at a point now where that contract the term has expired, and we are on a month-to-month basis, which is not an issue. There's been a working group of purchasing, our office, IT, District Attorney's Office, Sheriff's Department, that has been working on a proposal, an RFP, to submit to outside vendors whenever we do go out to bid on this again. And that's one thing that I wanted to talk to you about today real quick. There are different ways that we can structure RFPs. And of course, there's two issues that, besides the basic service that we look at. One is how much money will the county receive from this service, and how much money do we charge the inmates per call. In the past, we have been averaging somewhere between $900,000 and $1 million a year in revenue that's come to the county on this particular contract. In order to evaluate these, to make it somewhat more simplistic on evaluating these proposals, the proposal that you're going to see and what we would like to do, we're going to send you those proposals, they're drafts, and have a full discussion of them maybe on the 15th, or no later than the 22nd of this month. But you'll see in those drafts that what we're suggesting the court consider is that we set a minimum of $1 million a year as far as revenue from the contract. We have that basically in place. Then judging that service will be somewhat limited to the fees that they charge the inmates. And the reason that's important is because it's really not the inmates that pay those fees. It's family, friends, and associates, that type of deal. That's just a proposal that staff is going to be bringing to you. What I'm here today to tell you is to first of all identify that that's how this RFP is structured. Doesn't mean that this court cannot amend the way that thing is structured, just for your review. We'd like to give that to you sometime during this week, give you 2 or 3 weeks to look at, and then have a full discussion on how we might move forward.
Give it to us.
Okay. Thank you. Your Honor, that's all we have at this time.
Okay. We'll now recess our open meeting and proceed to closed session to discuss items exempted under sections 551.071, 072, 074, 076, and 087 of the Texas Government Code. Having returned from closed session and there being no business at this time, as is Roy, we will again adjourn in memory of Al Greger today. So, thank you very much.
See you guys in a couple of weeks.
Yes, sir.